Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay tonight, but Joe and I are both excited to be back here for Passport to the Paranormal.
Oh,
yeah. How are you doing today, Joe?
Good. I'm psyched.
Yes.
I'm psyched. You're. I know you're tired. You worked a long day today, so.
Oh yeah, I kind of had a feeling tonight was going to end up that way with the person I was closing with. She was.
Oh boy.
I mean, I'm still considered new, but she was newer than I am.
Oh God, the blind leading the blind, huh?
Exactly. And we were joking even at the end of the day. We're like, we bet our manager did this just to test to see how good we are.
That's okay. But, people will forgive us.
Yeah. But anyway, so when you guys join us, make sure you say hello. Let us know you're here. I do have 4 questions that we did not get answered from the last time we aired with our guests tonight. So I guess we'll bring them in first, and then we'll just. Hopefully you remember where we left off last time, Joe. I sure don't.
We'll figure it out. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey everyone. Where's Kenzie? I just see your hand.
Yeah, Kenzie's face is there.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome back. I mean, this is such a hot topic that we wanted to do a part 2. And I was just talking to Heather. I know we had a bunch of questions that we weren't able to get to in the first show. So we could get into those, and then we could talk about the event that we held a couple of weeks ago at the house, which was a huge success. And I was really excited to be part of it. So what do we have, Heather, for questions?
The first question came from Shannon. She wanted to know, have you thought you're maybe dealing with the devil?
With a devil or the devil?
It says a devil.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I'd say no. It was something very strong and negative, yes, for sure. But I don't think it was that strong. I've worked on worse cases personally, but I'd like to know what the family has to say because they had to live there.
I would say no.
I don't think it was the devil as per se, like a television devil, but I would think that it was extremely intelligent from what we learned, that it was definitely a trickster, but it was also something that could morphodite, where it could study our actions. If you remember, Joe, halfway through the investigation, it would just go calm and peaceful. And then we'd be like, where did it go? And throughout the years, you learn that whatever it was, it just, when it got to the point where it didn't want to play anymore or deal with us, it would just go somewhere, and we couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, I got the sense many times that it may have been there all the time, but it wouldn't always manifest. Matter of fact, it would take an awful lot for it to manifest, because normally these things don't want to be discovered. They kind of hide in the shadows until they're provoked. And once they're pushed to a certain point, then they'll start to manifest in certain ways as maybe a dark shadow or the growling sounds that we heard on many occasions. The sage incident where you found sage spread out all over your bed, the sage ash. These things are what we call vexations. But your house was more of an infestation, which basically is a series of vexations that are more frequent, and they're designed to spook you. They're designed to scare you, and they obviously succeeded at that. But when we're talking about devils, demons, I believe from my training there's a hierarchy, and I believe whatever we experienced back in the day was a very low level. However, the lowest form still can kick our asses, but I didn't think it was anything too strong because, Bishop McKenna came in and was pretty successful at expelling it. But I know you guys had a lot of incidents with other things that I believe since that time. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it was the devil. If you're saying devil singular, I believe there's only one. But there are, lower demons like there are angels. There's a hierarchy of angels and a hierarchy of demons. Yeah, I see your finger.
We're getting really weird static. We never had that ever in the history of an iPhone. Now it just stopped. Isn't that weird? When you were talking, there was static, like an old radio type of static. And that's why we were playing with it, because it was like interfering with your voice. And as soon as you stopped talking, Joe, it cleared up.
Well, I guess I'll stop talking.
No,
Don't
you're
solve
fine.
that problem.
No, you're fine. No, no.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
might be Joe's microphone even. Hold on 1 second.
That's what I think. Or somebody's.
Yeah, because I muted him and it went away. Nope, there it is.
Yep. You
think
guys
it's
hear it,
me?
right? It's not all in my head anymore, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
hear
coming
it.
from your guys' microphone.
Mine is
Okay.
good.
No, Joe's good, but when I mute yours, it comes back or it goes away.
Are you using the microphone on your phone?
Yeah, we're using our iPhone.
Maybe it's a little bit close. You're not using the iPhone for camera though, right?
No.
Try moving it away from the computer if it's right next to it. If you're just using it for the sound.
You can still see us on there, so be careful.
No, that's okay.
I'm gonna close out of this, okay?
Do what you gotta do to make it work, buddy. All right.
I think that's better. Heather, do you hear it?
Nope,
I
it's
hear
back.
it again.
Okay, back. That's
Well-
really strange because we never had that on an iPhone before. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can work through it if it's not that bad.
Yeah, that shouldn't be no big deal. I mean, we can work through it. I mean, we can hear you loud and clear. Mackenzie, you got like slippery fingers today. Everything you touch is like flying.
I don't need to. I got Butterfinger.
All right, so we got to get back on the main screen.
We don't need it now.
I would like to because I can't see Joe anybody. I can't. We had a good.
You gotta give me a second now.
Yeah, because it had nothing to
You guys
do.
can keep talking while I do this, by the way.
All right. So that's the first question, guys. That's a good question. That's a good one. I mean, that's all right.
Yeah,
There we
go. If that had been stronger, we would have had a much more difficult time. And we had a tough time, but I just feel I don't think that this was a high level being.
No, I think it was something else. I mean, I don't think it was a demon at all. I think it probably from maybe another realm or dimension, maybe.
Well, whatever it was strong enough to affect at least 3 investigators where they're no longer in the work.
Yeah.
You know, and we won't mention their names, of course, out of respect for them, but you know, one of them was a good friend of mine that was so badly affected by what was in the home that he's really not involved in this work anymore. At least to my knowledge.
Yeah, it's and just even around the people we know, a lot of strange deaths happen around us too. You know, people that we know die. We didn't get into that last week a little bit, or last time we got a little bit of it with John and those guys that died. They were young. All right.
I think the static is coming from what's happening is on your phone. Your speaker is feeding when we talk into your microphone. I think that's where the interference is coming because it only happens when Joe or I talk.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I can think
fixed.
of.
We'll do all the talking.
Right.
I'll just do sign language.
And then Dion Carolone said, where do the ley lines fall on the property? It feels like a portal.
That is a good question, Don.
I have to check with Jesse because she looked that up for me. I don't know at this point, to be honest with you.
We don't know, but it's funny because a lot of mediums who are really credential, like Scott Allen, Iris, right? Petra, a lot of other people, they feel that there's like a portal, but I think it's not always open, that it opens and closes enough where something can jump in and out. But it's interesting how all 3 of them picked up without even knowing about it. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I'd have to look
What do you
because
think,
I think Jesse looked up that information.
The way how Iris and Vivian and Carmen, they are
able to travel. I mean, I don't know what that means in English. But they were actually, when we had that meeting and they had the recording going, but they were also traveling, and they said we have a portal upstairs in the bedroom, but it goes all the way down to the cellar, where actually stuff could come in and out.
Huh.
And he said they also told me that we have people uh, going through who don't really belong to the house. It's just kind of like, I don't know, a hotel. I don't know. No, she said kind of like it's almost kind of like we have a beacon on the
Like a
house,
lighthouse.
and invites everyone.
Yeah, she said like
They
a
don't
lighthouse.
stay, but it's going kind of like we have a lot of
Like she referenced like a lighthouse, like a
Mhm.
beacon on top.
Huh.
This was
Well,
now told
yeah.
from 3 people that that is kind of like a house where it likes to go people
Yeah,
through.
I was told recently by a friend of mine who's a very gifted medium that there was a tear, like a tear in the spiritual fabric, for lack of a better term, and that was allowing things to come through. You know, I mean, there's so much history to the area. I don't even think a lot of this stuff is related directly to the house. We may never know that, but you know, there's been so much tragedy in and around the home. You know,
Yeah.
in the neighboring homes and outside and in the area being as old as it is. It's at least back to the early 1800s. You know,
Yeah.
we're still looking to verify that the house was built in the 1700s, but records are very, very scarce once you get to like 1846. There's not
Yeah.
much information before that. And I know you got the 1771 from the lady from the town hall. Is that my
Yeah,
memory serves me correct?
it's on our deed. So when we got the
Okay.
deed of the record, it says 1791. Now, when
Okay.
we talked with Paul Gadarowski, the guy that lived here from 1963 to 2001, we
Yeah.
talked to him briefly, and he said that we had one of the oldest houses in the area, and that he had the documentation at his Boy Scout camp in Brimfield, but we never. He wanted us. It was kind of weird. I mean, he seemed like a nice guy, but he wanted us to
Mhm.
pick him up one day, and he wanted us to drive out to the Boy Scout camp and buy us a pizza. And he was gonna dig us up their records, but it was kind of weird the way he invited us out. I don't go out in the woods with nobody unless I know them, you know. I just
Okay.
one of those things, you know. If someone invites you in the woods, you always say no, you know.
Now, the deed that you're referencing, is that an official document that you received from the town hall?
Yes,
I don't think I've seen that.
when we went to buy the house, it's on the house. So where things got messed up, and this is where it's partially our fault because we were trying to get house insurance, and a lot of places would not insure a house that was 1771. We ended up getting State Farm, and we actually said it was a 1924 house. So our insurance agent came out to verify it because on the deed, you know, when it says 1771. So she came up, and when she saw all the modern sheetrock, she went with the 1924. But when you go in the basement, which you've been
when
in
you
the
look at
basement, you see the old hand, the two main beams, which are logs, you know.
and they're held together with the dowels.
Right, with a wooden pick. So that one misconception of 1924 is actually from ours because we had to get house insurance. But then the other one came in is because the historical society, Enfield never had any good historical records, and that came from Colleen from the town hall because she said Enfield has never kept records, so they just started over the last 30 whatever years of trying to asking people for records and documents. And the other main Hinder was the gangster's son. Remember, I don't know if we talked about it. He actually volunteered and was on the board at the town hall. So I believe a lot of evidence disappeared when he worked there. Because he told everybody, all the major networks, even us, when we called up to ask information on it, he basically said there's nothing on the house. And then we got a message in 2020 after he died saying the reason why you couldn't get through anywhere is because of Charles Comparedo Jr. was I don't want to say he was running the historical society, but he was one of the main guys who would have been your main go-to people.
Yeah.
So that was a big curve record, because if there was any pictures or any documents, he probably made those disappear. So that was another hurdle that we faced. It seemed like we always hit roadblocks when we tried to.
Well, sometimes I've been in town halls looking up land records because my dad was a real estate appraiser for many years, and used to take me in the vaults with him when I was a kid. And sometimes you get into, I remember we were looking at books from, I swear they're from the 1600s. They were huge, these huge land maps, and they were like 3 feet by 3 feet. And put them on the table. You had to be very careful with them because they were very old. They're hundreds of years old. And the land today obviously looks nothing like it did then. It was just scarce. It was like farmland. But some towns don't have records that far back. If they did at one point, they might have been lost to fires or floods or something. But I think that might be partially the case in Enfield, that they don't have many records further back than the early 1800s. So,
and that's
they have actually a lady assigned to it now. When we went last year to the town hall and wanted to get more information, she said we have actually now a specific person working on the whole area, because they really have nothing to prove. They never collected anything. And I contacted this lady 3 or 4 times, but she never,
with the state too.
with the state, but she is here from Enfield. I don't want to say
was
her name
Enfield
now.
ever
She-
part of
Don't
another
say
community?
names, they're watching.
She's supposed to be kind of like, was supposed to be doing all the research on the history in Thompsonville. And I got the phone number and everything, an email from the town hall, because she said she's the person to do and to go to, but she never contacted us back.
Plus, two other things before we have the topic that also is, when Colleen was trying to go back farther than 1846, back then it got her screwed up because it
1846,
shifted.
you mean, right?
Yeah.
1846? No,
Well,
1846.
when Henry Thompson sold the house.
1846.
Yeah, because what happened was, prior to that, to go back farther, instead of going 100 feet this way, 70 feet this way, it goes into rods. It's an older form of measurement. So, which you probably know from your dad, it would say, let's say 37 rods, and this, and Colleen said a
I
rod
forgot
could
how many
be,
feet a rod is. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember.
yeah. So that was one of the other. That was one thing, and then the other thing was they didn't keep records, and then the other thing was Paul Gadarowski also for taxes too, was when they were doing a book called The History of Enfield, and he was kind of I don't know what you would say. He tried to avoid paying taxes. So whenever somebody came around, that's why he never put no money into the house, because he didn't want to pay the town any money. So that's why the house was in such disrepair, because even though he had the money, he didn't want to pay in taxes. So whenever they appraised we're still paying taxes on that 2-car garage or that barn where the guy hung himself, and we can't get the town to take it off, because when the appraiser comes out, they still see, they still go back and they said, no, we're still paying taxes on a building that's not here no more. So, all right. So that's a good question. Yeah.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
Nicole had asked, have any of you ever had vivid dreams or nightmares constantly?
Ooh, Kenzie, that's a good one for you.
Well, I don't have nightmares, but Courtney does though.
Mhm.
Courtney has them really bad. She tells me bits and parts of it, and I tell her, I said, nope, you're getting into too detail. I feel bad for her because I mean, she shouldn't go through that, you know. But I try my best. You know, my sleeping schedule is weird too. I mean, I go from my bed for a couple months, and I go back to the couch until I get scared downstairs, and then I go back upstairs, and it's like a routine cycle at this point.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So nightmares.
She's Courtney has also nightmares about people who coming in the house where she said, I'm worried that something happened to them. So
like living people.
Mhm.
Like a
She
psychic
dreams
impression of someone.
actually about people who coming into the house, and she said, I'm worried about it. I had a really bad dream. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it didn't look good. So so she has that too. Just lately where someone was here, she had a dream about it.
But
Has
they
anything
also
happened in the last couple of weeks since we had the event? Any uptick in activity, anything like that?
we had some
Noticeable.
weird things. One, I know you're gonna laugh. On the wall when you come in, right, Joe? When you come in on our side, Elka for
Okay.
years she has this little knickknack of a pink flamingo, right? And it's held up on, you know how like a picture frame, you got like a little triangle thing and a screw goes in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to take it off. I showed Elka. Well, I came over here because when you got three girls in the house, sometimes us guys we got to come over here to use the bathroom. And I got up and as I was heading down, I could have swore I saw something in the big bedroom, but I'm like, you know what? It was out of my peripheral vision. I couldn't confirm or deny it. But when
Yeah.
I went downstairs, I opened the door and I was coming in, and Alco was coming over and was talking about what's it, Iris or somebody. It came flying off the wall and it hit the ground and smashed. And luckily it didn't break. And Elka's like, how did that do that? And I picked it up, I looked at it, and I put it back on. And I tried to redo it by banging on the wall, shaking the wall, moving it. I couldn't get it to come off the wall. So somehow it had to get picked up off that piece and come off. And it hit down and banged off the radiator.
That happened recently, right?
That happened, yeah,
You were on
last
the
week,
phone.
wasn't it?
You were on a
Last
call
week,
with
yeah.
the girls from Germany, Iris.
Yeah, Iris, yeah, she was talking
Okay.
because Iris has been talking to Elko almost every day. Her and the other girls.
I don't know the last recordings. She didn't had a chance yet to review it with them because of Mother's Day, and she had birthday in the family. So she said I couldn't really listen to the second one where we had this. We had longer, but the first one, they pick up still on that girl with the long hair and the nightgown, where she said, and she said on the recording too that she's here and she's sick. And I always think somehow we have to make sure that this girl leaves because she said this girl is actually causing sickness in your house.
Iris said that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's something to look into.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
had before I get into it. Do we have any other questions, Heather?
Nope, we're good.
Because I wanted to talk a little bit about the night that we did the event, and I know you guys probably wrote this stuff down, but we had 3 or 4 of the attendees had personal experiences in the
things
house.
happen.
One of them was a good friend of mine that's been an investigator for 30 years. He heard his name mentioned. He heard a male voice say his name, Richard. Now he's never called Richard. He goes by Rick. But he confirmed that. And here's a seasoned investigator that worked alongside me with Ed and Lorraine Warren many years ago. And he was really excited about the fact that he knew he heard a voice mention his name. And then the woman that he was with, a friend of his that came with him, said she heard growling.
Yeah.
And this is before they heard the growling on the tape. She said she thought it was coming from outside because it sounded like a dog or something growling, but the windows were closed. So that was two that I remember. You guys can talk about the other ones. I don't remember.
Actually, there was possibly 5. When
I said
Richard
growling too.
Yeah.
And I remember now
Well,
she had growling too.
Yeah. So before I lose out, when we were upstairs with Rick, with those girls, remember one was a skeptic, and Rick's friend. So there was 3 girls up there. The other guy who was here. Now I'm so used to things happening, I don't even sometimes pay attention. But all of a sudden, they all felt it. So it wasn't like an isolated thing. They all felt what felt like the room went up and then down. And they felt like something shifted. And they all got up off the beds because we were talking about the thing. So everybody sat around the beds. They all got up and they started coming out. So that's when I started leading them to the small room. And that's when Rick got his name called. So that was the 2 things there. But the other one was when you were talking, remember I got up, I went over, I was standing next to Fernando, and all of a sudden, it felt like there was some kind of weird breeze coming down the stairs. It was like, and Fernando felt it, the person felt it, they looked around, and then it wasn't constant like something blowing down the stairs. It was like something, the way Fernando said, it felt like something came down the stairs and went past everybody. So that was the growling, the 2 things upstairs, and then after everybody left, I went behind everybody, shut off the lights. Elka went back upstairs, shut off the bathroom lights. We went over with you to the car. And you remember I looked up, I said, oh no, I said the lights are on.
Yeah, the lights are on. That's right. I forgot about that.
And Elka said, no. She said, I shut all the lights off. She goes, Joe, the lights just came on. I saw it. So Elka verified that the lights came on. That's the first time we've ever had anything like that happen where we had multiple, I'm saying multiple things happen in one night in a very, very long time.
So you had to go back in after I left. You had to go back upstairs and turn the lights off again.
Did you? Or did
I remember seeing the lights on now.
Yeah.
And you were sure you had turned them off. But they're definitely on. I can definitely confirm that.
No, because I wanted actually when we got ready to bring the stuff to the car, I wanted to have it happen that we only just close the door and go to bed. So I made sure that I didn't have to come back on this side. So I went upstairs and then kind of like, oh my Lord. And then, I went upstairs again and the bathroom light and the hallway light was on.
And that happened years ago.
2 lights? 2 of them?
2 lights. Yep, the bathroom and the hallway light was on.
I mean, obviously it could be something. I would obviously try to look for some kind of other explanation, like maybe when you turn the switch off, it wasn't completely turned off. I mean, who knows? But they never came back on again, right? So you shut them off again and they stayed off?
No.
They stayed off.
Interesting.
And so that was a good night that night. I mean, I think we led one non-believer to face her fears and became a believer.
Yeah, well, the young lady that was there, she was pretty adamant that, Heather, this is important. This nice lady, but she's like, I would have to see it. So I said, okay, well, I've got some compelling footage I'm going to show you shortly. I said, I'd like to get your take on it after you've seen it. And, did you see her facial expression when she saw the video? She was like, wow. And so after we were done showing the video, I looked at her and I said, are you convinced now that there may be something here? And she's like, yeah, but I'd still want to see it. I said, be careful what you wish for, young lady.
Yeah.
But, look, I don't doubt people for saying, look, I need to see it to believe it kind of thing. Show me. Some things you just got to take on faith. But I think she was pretty convinced after she saw the footage, because this was, totally authentic footage that was captured some 17 years ago. But, definitely respect her for her opinion, but she's like, nah, I'd still want it to like show up in front of me or something. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to wish for that.
No, I think she got her wish though when she was sitting on that bed and the room. I don't know the way
Did
they
she
the
feel
way
it
that
too?
Rick
I
described
wasn't upstairs when that
Yeah,
happened, but
we were down
she
here.
feel
We
it?
were talking.
She-
I was not
Yeah.
upstairs either.
Yeah, she was upstairs because Rick was standing in the doorway and he's like, "Did you
Mm.
feel that?" I'm like, "A bomb could go off. I probably won't feel it."
Yeah.
So living here, but Rick said he said the room felt like it went up and then down, but
Mhm.
from what everybody's expression, because everybody was sitting on the bed, they all got up and they decided at that point they were leaving. So she was one of them. So maybe she got her
Well,
wish.
the house is fascinating, and for people that don't know
Yeah.
what we're talking about, the Enfield home in Connecticut, where the Yaples live, has a storied history to it of paranormal activity, and I was part of a team that was called in back in 2007, and we worked on the case for 3.5 years, and collected some pretty interesting evidence. And so what we decided to do was do a presentation in the living room, and we had I don't know how many people we had there total, about 12 of us, I think, 12 or 13 people, including
13,
us. But we had some folks come in and we showed them. I showed them a presentation. I went over a bunch of stuff. Some of it had nothing to do with the home, but it culminated talking about the case that took up the majority of the time. And we discussed with the folks the history of. You did a great job, Jay and Elka and Mackenzie, talking about the history of the property. And all the tragedies surrounding not only the property but the neighborhood, which may or may not have any direct effect on the home or the activity that you experienced. But we were able to discuss it in depth with people, and they had opportunity to ask a lot of questions. And I wanted to make it known to them. And look, you're sitting in the living room where we got some of this evidence. This is the home where this all happened, all the stuff that we're talking about and we're showing you in the presentation, which I thought was a nice draw to it. And it was very successful. So if anybody's listening and they're interested, we're thinking about doing another event, maybe late in June. So look for that to show up on the social media schedules and stuff in case anybody's interested in attending.
You get a chance when you do see it, because it's wealth of knowledge.
Oh, we lost them.
Nope.
They must have connectivity issues. Oh well. We'll see if they can come back. That's on their end, Heather, right?
Yeah, that's not over here.
Well, I mean, do you have any questions, Heather, about the event that we had there?
No.
I'm just wondering,
I think they're back.
if people.
This is weird. Okay. Weird things are happening with static.
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, we got you back.
All over.
That's my case.
Are you guys having a problem with your internet
All right,
service?
can you hear us now? We have no volume.
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
It's got to be on the phone. We have no volume on the phone.
We can hear you, but you're breaking up.
All right.
Can you hear me?
All right. Clear. All right.
You can.
No.
You join. Maybe
Whatever you guys
he
do,
has
I
to
don't know
refresh
anything
because
about
maybe
this.
the internet might be
All
bad.
right, hang on.
Okay.
Something.
I think they have some connectivity issues.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump and say it's paranormal because it's probably not. But
right.
you never know.
If they can't
You
if
never
they
know.
can't figure it out, we could always reschedule because we don't have anyone
Yeah.
scheduled for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be here next week, but that won't affect us.
Right.
What's going on with the radio thing? Can you fill everybody in on that? Because
I'm waiting for the contract because she sent me the
Okay,
wrong contract. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
Well, that's gonna
I'll
be- that's
soon
gonna be a
have
lot of
more
fun.
information on that, hopefully.
That'll
If
definitely
not,
be a lot of
like
fun.
I said, we're working on a lot of things behind the scenes, and we just got to get a few T's crossed and I's dotted, and we'll have some big announcements, hopefully.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I hope it's a busy summer. I'd like to come down and work with you on some stuff down there.
Yep.
Yeah, not much happening up here, but if you ever get up this way, we could hit a couple of places up here. I mean, New England's filled with all kinds of stuff, but
I just hope things pick up behind the scenes a little bit faster so I can not have to work so much and get back to paranormal research.
I'm right there with you, sister. Trust me. You know, I've been setting some stuff up on my schedule, but it's all like local.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stuff's trickling in here and there, but some of the events I'm going to be attending are not for a few months. Like, well, the Wilson Castle event up in Proctor, Vermont, that both of us are going to be going to, I guess, has been pushed off until May of next year.
Right.
Yep. I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but they had a scheduling conflict or something. So that's pushed off. So that's going to be a year from now. And,
right. Yeah. And on my calendar so far, I only have with TMCC again, I'm teaching Ghost Hunting 101, which was really popular last year, and I'm tweaking it. That's going to be October 23rd. And then on October 30th, I'm doing an in-depth class in science and the paranormal.
Okay. And what's going on with your book schedule? What do you got coming up?
I have Haunted Florida Roadside Attractions is coming out August 5th. And Ghosts and Legends of Florida Pirates is coming out September 5th. And then Haunted Florida Lighthouses is coming out sometime in August as a children's book.
Cool. Now, some of these haunted attractions, these roadside attractions, are many of them still open? I mean, are they open to the public, or are they just okay? And do some of them have like haunted tours, stuff like that?
No, not one of them did. I mean, one did because it was a cemetery.
Okay. I'm just wondering for you and I, if there's a way to do presentations at this place, and we could talk about, or you could talk about, you know, the research you've done on the
I need to go back through because there was a lot. I mean, some of the stuff, I mean, it was as simple as like one, we have the grave of the oldest person or oldest man in America. He died at, I think it was like 130 some years old.
I heard about that. That's where he's buried there?
Yeah, he's buried about 20 minutes from our house. And we actually went to his grave and took photos for the book and did research on his history and his life. And even though it's not what you would think of as a typical roadside attraction, it's listed as one in Roadside America because people will go out of their way to go see his grave.
I would like to see it if I'm ever in the neighborhood.
And then it's not too far from Spook Hill, which is one of those gravity hills.
Yeah.
And that has an interesting story with it.
I mean, you know, I was thinking about if there's a way we could partner with some of these places, if they're so inclined, and obviously talk about the place and the history and all that, but also to give us an opportunity to educate people on what we do.
Right.
You know, and what a real investigation entails. You know,
none of us knew we were back.
You know what I'm talking about. All right, we got your back, huh?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Can you hear us better?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, Kenzie fixed it. She downloaded some app from China, which directed it to Switzerland back to the United States. So we're good.
All right. Well, as long as it's legal.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know.
Leave it to the kids.
Ask questions.
The kids know about this technology. Yeah, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah. So
I mean,
if
where did we
it's
leave off before we lost you? I don't remember. How did you remember?
something about Black Hawk helicopters coming in to get Mackenzie for an illegal app, no. No,
That
we
may
were
happen.
talking about we were wrapping up with the house, and that night, we talking about having another one. And I was talking about if anybody out there ever gets the chance to come and join one of these sessions, it's a wealth of knowledge. And or I think the haunting here is like an oddity. It's something that's not your run of the mill, lady in white. There's something odd with the history. So if anybody gets a chance to come out and hear Joe talk about the things that happened here, the things that he encountered, and to learn the history of the house, and then take a tour and ask questions.
We want to do also an investigation.
Investigation,
afterwards.
yeah.
We bought some new toys, so we can.
Yeah, I'm also thinking of a way that we could turn this into a place where we can educate people.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, investigations are fun and people have their gadgets and their cat balls and all that stuff. I get it. But, first thing you need to do is understand what the paranormal is and the terminology that's used. Because a lot of this terminology, demons, exorcism, all that stuff, it's thrown around into a big mix, like a word salad. And people don't really understand what they really mean by infestation, vexation, obsession, oppression, possession. I mean, there are reasons for these terms, and they are stages of certain things. But it could almost be like an educational hub. Heather and I were talking a little bit about educating while we lost you there for a couple of minutes, because Heather's done a lot of research for her books. I said, what would be neat is if Heather and I could go to some of these places that she's researched and do kind of an event / presentation, at the location, and people would not only come to see the location, but they could learn, from Heather, who's done all the research on it.
Yeah.
The real history behind, like the real history behind your house. It's like, okay, you come here, we're going to talk to you about the history of the house and what we captured there, what happened to the family, what you've been living with for all these years. I find that fascinating, even after being involved in this work for almost 40 years. I'm always fascinated by the work. I never get tired of it, is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and
the people were engaged. I mean, they were interested in it too. So.
Oh, they were completely engaged. Yeah. Everybody was very, very engaged. And Rick, my friend Rick, that was there. I'm glad he was able to validate a lot of the stuff I was saying, because he was taught by Ed and Lorraine as well. I think he joined the Warrens in 1991. So, we're talking, a long time.
Let's not go back that far, because I was a young puppy back then too. Now I'm like an old dinosaur. But you know what? It was great because I got, like I always tell people, pick my brain. And having Rick here and having Fernando and those other people here, they were very inquisitive, and they were really picking our brains, and which was awesome, because there's things
surprisingly,
you don't think about.
They were very knowledgeable as well.
Yeah,
Fernando, he was a very knowledgeable. I'm going to call him a young man, because compared to me, he was young.
Yeah,
but
so I think
it's great.
And before we hang up, maybe we should tell them about what we're thinking about doing for the October thing, and possibly what we might do. We'll talk about it towards the end, so we'll keep everybody on the edge of their seat here. What we think about doing for after Halloween thing here, Yeah,
we need to get Heather up for that one.
Yeah.
Well, we were discussing, Halloween unfortunately falls on a weeknight, so you can't really do anything on a weeknight.
Yeah.
But we were talking about maybe that Saturday right after it, which would make it November 2nd, I believe, would be that Saturday. We might have some kind of special Halloween haunt event.
We can pull it off.
We've got a lot of ideas that we're throwing around, but we've got a lot of interest.
I'm going to jump out of the closet like a birthday cake. No.
Well, there's a lot of interest. That one we could possibly do sort of an open house thing, because if we do a closed lecture like we did last, we can only get so many people in the house. It's an old house and it's not very spacious. So we've got a few months to think about that, but I like the idea of it. And then do an investigation. People can stay and bring their toys if they like. But what I love to hear is the people that come up that are having their personal experiences, like we talked about a few moments ago, because those were unsolicited. I mean, these are people like, I just heard growling behind me. I thought it was a dog outside. I'm like, the window's closed. There's no dog outside.
No.
But she was adamant of what she heard. I think somebody else heard it too. Elka, did you say that earlier? I don't know. That's why I asked you to write it down, because I knew I wasn't going to remember.
No, I had my experience a couple weeks ago next door. Had that crowling. I didn't. She asked me that night if I have animal, or if we have animals. I said, yeah, we have animals, but they're next door. And first of all, I did not know where she wanted to go with that. And she said, no. I don't mean it that way. I wanted to know if animals around here right now. But she still didn't say that she heard the growling. She said it afterwards. And then she said to me, that's why I asked you if you have animals.
She became a true believer. That girl, when she left out, I don't know what her name was, but that was the one that Rick brought. It
was one of his colleagues from work. Her name escapes me as well. I got some timers.
Was it not Dana or something?
I don't know. But if we can pull off, Heather, if we can pull this off, I got to talk with Joe. We might do, I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit. If I can get the basement cleaned up a little bit, get some chairs down there.
I'll be right back.
I just popped this out now, so Joe may knock me out. He just went off camera, but we're thinking about maybe doing like a candlelight thing in the basement and talking and maybe doing some things down there. That's a pretty hot spot. And or maybe we can do it in front of the old crawl space where a lot of people have actually had really strange things happen to them down there.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
I wish I lived closer.
I tell you, I'd be the first one running out of there. That's Elka. When Elka was teaching for Porter and Chester, I was having some work done on the boilers. So she was talking to the HVAC director, and he came up, and he was an ex-Marine, and he came up with the other guy, Fred, and they were working on the boilers, and he didn't know about the house. And so Fred came up to help me run the thermostat wires.
He knew, but he didn't believe.
So when me and Fred went back downstairs, now Fred was a bigger guy, and when we went downstairs, what was his name? Frank, right? Frank looked at me. He goes, "You will never ever leave me alone in this godforsaken basement." He goes, "I swear." He goes, "Something's in that crawl space." He goes, I kept turning around, and he goes, "I could have swore something was in that crawl space staring at me." And sure enough, whenever we had to leave to go do something, Frank ran with us. He would never be alone ever again in that basement by himself. And so, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that's what we were talking about today. Maybe we can clean up the basement a little bit and maybe do something spooky down there for like a Halloween event party type of thing. I think would be pretty cool. So but
and actually Jennifer wants to know if all the entities are out of the house.
Good question. Well, Jennifer, not the human ones, not like the human spirits. We believe. I'm saying that we believe that the one that Joe encountered. Now, when he was here, they said there was many of them, and they said there was many. So I believe Joe got rid of one. Bishop McKenna got rid of one, but there was one that came with a high price. That I'll be honest, almost killed Jay Dodd. I mean, these guys were seasoned guys, and this entity went after Jay Dodd and actually showed him what he could do. So but we've made physical contact. Well, Alka actually been touched by Charles Comparedo in the basement. He actually put his hand on her shoulder a couple years ago, and he asked where Rosa was. So we still got about, I would say they picked, well, through the course of this year, they picked up on 3 or 4 different teenage girls,
A little boy,
a little boy, an older man, and
And now the second time,
Elizabeth.
Edmund came out, but we don't know who Edmund is. He came out last week again, but
Really?
we have Edmund.
I never heard of.
Yeah, no, there was now twice, but we have no idea who that is.
And Susan's another one. A girl named Susan popped up over the course of the year. We don't know who Susan is, but it popped up on Scott's thing when he was here last year. When he was doing that voice box, a girl named Susan came up, and then another team came in and asked who Susan was. We had 3 different teams over the course of the year asked for who was Susan. They made contact with Susan, and I have no idea. The only Susan I knew or I know of was Charles Comparedo's son. That would have been the gangster's grandson. He was the one that committed suicide.
His wife's name was
His wife was Susan.
but she's still alive, so I don't think.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because Terry searched it, and
really?
she's still alive.
Well, I think
So we don't-
it suffices to say.
What's that?
I was going to say it suffices to say that the house still seems to be active.
Yeah.
Now, Jen, I know Jen, and Jen, you need to come to the house. Stop being so afraid.
Yeah.
You need
But
to come
you
to
know
the
what?
house.
We
because
haven't-
It's really something you need to
We don't know
experience.
how many renters here were living either. So
We
can
don't.
be
You also
renters
don't
or-
know if whatever these spirits that people may be encountering in the home might be attached to someone that's there. You know, if you've got a bunch of visitors, you never know.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm still convinced that there's the house is active now. Whether it's active with what we dealt with years ago, I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. But you never know. I mean, whatever was dispelled many years ago could have returned, for all I know. I haven't personally investigated the home in many years. I've been there, but I haven't actually done an investigation and set up equipment and cameras and all that stuff. And I personally haven't heard anybody call my name. Not that it probably want anything to do with me anyway. But I have been told that someone said, I think it was Scott, said that he felt very strongly that there was something lying in wait.
Yeah. Scott
And
Allen. Yeah.
I didn't know. He didn't really know what that meant. Like lying in wait for who? For me? For him? You know, so it's one of the reasons why he asked me to come that night that he was there, because I guess he told me he'd feel more comfortable if I was there. I said, okay, you know. But that night also went off pretty well without any issues. I was more concerned or curious if anything happened after everyone left that night. You know, like the lights being left on or turning back on. That's mysterious, but you know, it could be explained away as something else.
That type of stuff is very rare. We haven't had that stuff in a long time. But needless to say, Jennifer, and anybody out there, you're safe. Knock on wood. We haven't lost one person yet over the last 18 years. We haven't. Nobody has disappeared willingly in the walls.
Jen wants to come to that house. I know she does.
Yeah. No one's vanished. I mean, anybody who willingly came out left. Maybe some people came and they vanished.
Germany really believes firmly too that thing is dormant somewhere.
Yeah, well, let's not wake this thing up, because that was one hell of a battle, which Joe can contest. That was not fun.
I would be comfortable not dealing with that again.
Yeah,
believe me, it's not something that I look forward to, because if that thing comes back, Heather, you got to come up.
I'm just when he was talking about the basement earlier. I would be
What's that,
happy to sit
Elizabeth?
down in the basement and just sit there alone for a few hours.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, John Zappis, I just spent the day with him a week or so ago. He told me, he's like, I had experiences in the basement himself where he heard his
messed
being
with,
called, and he was in the little, I don't know, tunnel. What do you call that? A little cubby hole section of the basement where you have to crawl in.
He's a brave man.
I won't fit in. But John was in there and he kept hearing his name being called. And, he's like, what? And I guess when he came out, he's like, guys, I couldn't really hear you because I was in this crawl space. And they're like, we weren't calling you. But he said he was absolutely sure someone was calling his name.
Well, yeah, that happened to him upstairs too in the crawl space. From what the producers were talking about when he was upstairs too, crawling around in those crawl space. So he got messed with quite a few times, John. Are you okay, Joe?
Yeah, my TV just popped on. That happens.
Oh, wow.
I'm not saying it's a ghost, but for some reason my TV just popped on. I had to step away a bit because there was a cat fight going on outside.
Oh. So
The cat doesn't
is
go along
there
with the
any
neighbor's
other
cat.
question, guys, for us? I mean,
No, they're quiet today.
that's strange. So do we want to continue on? Do you guys have any questions, Heather, for us? I mean, you guys want to talk about more about what we left off on, about with experiences, or what you guys were talking about?
I don't even know where we left off, to be honest.
I know.
Well, I mean, I was trying to work my way backwards. So we had the event, and then there was the event before that with Scott and Matt. And I was just wondering, was there anything, and even Mackenzie, jump in here, because I know you and your sister have had some experiences. I don't know if you want to talk about them, but you've had some sightings, correct? Some sightings of some black, Hat Man type figures?
I have. I've seen a couple black shadows moving across. And usually, I mean, you see them like go by fast normally. But I remember this one just taking its time. And I'm like, I think it wanted me to notice it was there. Because I was working on my finals that night. And I just saw it walking. And it was just slowly. And I thought maybe, there was a reflection or something. And this thing was clear as day. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I think that's my time to go.
Was this in your room? Where was this exactly?
This was actually when I was sitting in the living room on the recliner in the dining room. It just walked right across the table. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. And then I'll see it like peek around the corner or something like that. When I go around the corner, I'll see it standing there, especially with the girl too.
Oh, you still see that girl? Did Mom tell you what?
Yeah, she told me. Yeah, I see her in the attic a lot. That's where I mostly see her, in the attic.
Yeah,
And one question I have real quick is based on the research that I'm working on for another project. Are any of you RH negative for your blood type?
Meaning blood type, right?
Right.
She's asking because she's a vampire. No.
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 No. I'm only asking because we found in our research that about 80% of those we've interviewed that have had Hatman experiences are RH negative.
What are
That's in.
I have no idea.
I'm A positive. I know that could go to the military because
That's nice.
you guys need to know.
I know we have the blood type because when it's somewhere in our.
So now while they're talking,
but I don't.
this is interesting. But because you know what, you think, Heather, with this RH blood type, you think this is something that the government's involved with? That's making the Hat Man. It's how they have like the Men in Black. Is that because RH is that like a rare type of thing, or is there something around that?
No, we're in our theory so far. We've come up with that it's more or less that the Hat Man is there to either watch over people who are RH negative. Also, he's attracted to those that have that blood type, and that there is some connection between the appearances and the actual blood type. Whether the more research we do, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Knowing with I'm drawing a blank. Nicolas Cage, where all the kids started talking about, and then they all disappeared with these entities at the end. The research we're doing is leaning heavily towards that type of event. that these
That's
kids
something.
that are seeing it, and then it's also in conjunction with all missing 411 cases are happening at the same locations that the Hat Man has been spotted.
Yeah, this would be a whole other show, because you know what, I'm not like I'm a little bit into conspiracy theories, but there was a topic that they many years ago they found where Christ was crucified, and they found living blood, and they said that this blood is alive. So some people, like my older cousin, she won't give up her DNA because she said there's a reason why that the government is pushing, and then one of the conspiracy theories is that they're trying to find anybody with this type of blood lineage to date back to Christ, and to see if anyone has any Christ lineage. And I don't know, it's really crazy, but could you imagine that? If you typed in ancestry and they came back and you had this type of DNA or whatever, then next thing you hear a knock on the door and somebody throws a bag over your head and you end up in a white van, all because you did a DNA test. But that's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's just whenever someone
survey.
talks about seeing the Hat Man, I always ask that because that's part of our research is trying to identify, and because we're actually, the researcher I'm working with, she wants answers as to what and who he is, where I'm actually, my side of it is to analyze the data and try to track him down.
Oh wow.
And that's what we're trying to actually get more information on him.
Yeah, I'm
had
actually
that conversation last week with my German friends, and they said to me, because I was telling them that the kids always see that, and they said, you don't have to be afraid of him. And they're like, what? And she said, no, because it is not that he eats the souls. They believe,
If you watch the picture,
and they believe that he's actually there to
what's going on? She's restless. She never gets restless.
actually to help people crossing over.
Lay down.
So he picks actually the people up, and she said, and actually you want to have that in your house because you have such an active house, and
calm down.
they have all four believe that he's the type of person who gets the lost souls. Not that he eats them, but he believes, they believe that he helps them to cross over.
Right. And from our research, that's a very rare occurrence, even though we've had some people say that they feel like he's just there watching. But a good 95% of those that we've talked to, that they've been physically attacked.
Yeah.
And by him. So he's very just on. I mean, we have over 1,000 surveys that we've done. And our surveys have like 250 questions. So it's not just your, have you seen him? Yes or no. It goes in depth into everything that you would need. And out of all those surveys, a good 95% have been physically attacked, phically harmed, feel threatened, and only a small
surveys are for the people that have seen him, right?
Yeah.
I forgot what Philomena told me, but it might be advantageous to have them take the survey.
Yeah, I think
I
I'll make sure
know the girls have seen
it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's with the shadow people here. My brother saw him twice, and the last time he saw him, he was dead. I mean, that's a big mysterious thing there too, guys. There's a lot of weird things happening around, like my brother, my sister's death. I mean, there's a lot of weird things happen. I mean, since we moved in here, my life has never been the same. Just with not just the history of the house, but people, a lot, like most people who come to the house, they don't know. Like when I don't talk about my personal experiences, but Joe, usually when we do everything, it's usually history, but the weird things, how my brother and my sister died. I think we might have touched on it a little bit last time.
We talked about it,
and other things, and just really weird things. So, but yeah, I think.
Well, I mean, one question I used to get a lot about you guys is, why didn't they ever move? I said, well, they couldn't afford to. They sunk everything into this house. I mean, it's not as simple as in the movies where you just pack up and leave, but that's why we were looking for answers and looking for a way to solve this issue. and it's not
Yeah,
always
but the
black and
entity could have
white.
also followed them
That's true.
Yeah.
once
That's
it had
very
it, once it was
true.
attached.
We
No,
were told
it-
that too. We were told that if we had moved before we fought this thing, that we would lose our ground, that this thing could go attack us, then come back here, and then we would have no way to fight it. And that thing would actually have a upper hand on us, because we wouldn't be able to come back if we sold the house. But the main thing is that every time we tried to move, something horrific would happen to us.
Yeah.
You know, like we were talking last week or last time, my brother died, my sister died, car accidents, misfortune.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Elka never
Losing a
wanted the
job,
house.
kind of, yeah.
Elka never wanted to move in.
yeah, no, we should
The
never
house
listen.
picked you.
That's what John said. Yeah,
Yeah, I
John's
think the
office
house
when he
picked you.
found out there was 4 or 5 sets of twins. John almost fell off his chair and said, "You didn't pick this house." He goes, "The house chose you." He goes,
I've got
"Holy
twins
cow."
also, so maybe I was chosen to help you. Who knows?
Yeah, you got twins there.
That's what
Yeah.
Iris said last week, because I told her that the story about that we have so many sets of twins here, and I said, and Joe Franke has twins too, and she said, I'm pretty sure the house chose you all.
Hmm.
Oh,
That's weird that keeps popping up. But the land, I really think whatever happened, I mean, because we're so close to the Connecticut River and with the Native Americans and then the witches, we have the Windsor witch trial, which is like 15 minutes away. And then we have that correlation with Salem witches and coming. So I mean, it would be great to jump onto a time machine, and
Yeah,
go
there's a
back.
lot of theories. I don't know if we'll ever
Yeah.
have the answer, but
Yeah, I know.
there's a lot of theories, and some of them are pretty rooted in some interesting information. They're not just wild theories, but unfortunately, when you have a property that could be essentially 1771, you're talking what 253 years ago,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of records that go back that far.
Yeah.
But we're always looking. I had one of our researchers, Jesse, look into the property, and she got stonewalled at 1846. She couldn't find really anything beyond that. And I know that you had some history of people that owned the house prior to 1846, but for some reason she was puzzled. She couldn't find any information on it. And the Historical Society was no help.
Yeah, no, but the key thing, and now this is what's even more, like I said, people don't realize how deep this is, because the interesting things that when you look into the people's family, there's something there. This part of town we were getting into last time is called Thompsonville, and it was based off of Oren Thompson. He started up these large carpet mills, and when I mean carpet mills, they're not like one big thing. It looked like a whole military complex at one time, and he started them up in 1828. Now, Joe, you have another big piece of evidence that if we can ever get the tapes going, is when Gary was channeling, and Gary was taught when Gary switched over, and he said that, meaning us, we're in his house, and that we wanted to take his money and gold, that he was a traitor. Now, this is the kind of where science starts meeting reality. Is Gary was talking about there was a trader that lived here, but not like a Benedict Arnold trader, but somebody who traded in dry goods or some kind of merchandise.
Fur trader or something like that.
While we were looking into the Thompson family, Oren's father or grandfather, they're both named Matthew. One of them was a Revolutionary War veteran, but guess what he did for a living? He was a trader. He traded goods. And that and nobody could have known that. And Gary picked up on that. And we have, that's part of the ancestry on, not ancestry, but that thing that we research, ancestry, whatever. Yeah. And so we know the weird part is everything starts coming from the the Thompsons family. And now again, like I said, nothing's normal in this house. Now, Henry Graham, he had a sister, and I think it was December 8th. I mean, there's so much. I would love to sit down with somebody, because I have really bad writing skills. My hands are messed up. But if we could get this in writing. Now, what we found out was the house was already an old house. So when Henry Graham, he sold it in 1846, because his father was already in 1846, where the Sisters of Felican down on Route 5. It's a huge, humongous complex for the Catholics, like the nuns and the priests, and they have buildings now. But that was his father's estate. Now this thing goes on maybe about a half mile. That's how big the estate was, and there's many buildings on there. So that was Orrin Thompson's thing. So here's the weird thing: as Henry Thompson, he was a very smart man. He invented some machinery, some business called a stocklet, some kind of machining. Well, as he was coming up, it's almost like, I don't want to say like something, I always refer like something like weird, like Salem's Lot. As he's coming up to be the next super rich guy, his father was nominated as the richest man in Connecticut and parts of New York City. Now, in 1850 something, what was weird is Orrin Thompson, he loses all his money. He becomes the poorest man in Connecticut, we find out. Then Henry Thompson, it's kind of like almost like the movie Offering or something like that. Henry Thompson, after he sells the house in 1846, that December, it's like somebody has to pay a price. And this is all theory, so don't quote me on this, guys. His sister dies December 8th. Orrin Thompson's daughter, which is Henry Graham's sister, dies. No, I don't know if she died in the house. We can't find that out, but I know it said that she died. Now, what happens is, that's when the first death happens, is in 1849 on February 22nd, which was Horace Abbey. But now after that, it gets even a little bit stranger. After Henry Graham moves, after he sells the house, he ends up moving down because he loves New York City, and he lives down in North Haven, and he invents this very famous machining. But he doesn't become a Protestant. Now, that's normal back then, Protestant, Catholic. He joins this religion called, if you can look it up, Google it, called Swedish born, named after a guy from Sweden. He developed his own religion called Swedish born. I started looking it up, and so when he was a big practitioner in that. Now, when Henry Graham died, he wanted to be buried in Enfield at his family's plot. Now, when you go to the Elm Street Cemetery, the way you find them is it goes on top of like a hill, and there's a big flagpole, right, with the American flag. Well, right underneath there's these, above ground is all the famous Thompson's crypts above ground. And you'll see Orrin Thompson, Henry Graham, Matthew Thompson, even their wives' names they have their own crypts on top. So it's fascinating family. But
Which Thompson lived in the house?
What's
which
that?
Which Thompson lived in the house, though?
The only one that we know, we don't know if he lived here or he rented it out, but we know he sold it, was Henry Graham. Now, Henry Graham, his father, we found out from Roger, who was the building inspector years ago, they had built, and when you look at that gingerbread house down the street, they call it gingerbread.
I've seen it.
It's a Greek revival type of thing, Heather. Well, what happened was, when they were doing the historical thing in New York City, this very world famous architect, it's written in his book, he said, I finished a house in Thompsonville, Connecticut for Orrin Thompson's son, Henry. It was a Greek revival. He finished it, everything. He designed it, everything. Well, over the years, course, Enfield, now probably the mayor, everybody's watching this tonight, they're going to kick me in the ass, but that's okay. It won't be the first time. They have a way of screwing things up, right? So what happens is they decide they take the house by eminent domain or for taxes, right? So they want to start up a housing for how do you say this without sounding like awful? Mentally not deranged, but mentally challenged people, right? For like assisted living, right? Well, they started tearing it down to make it modernized. Well, the town, the state historical society came in and said, "Whoa, stop! You have to redo everything because this is a historical house. This was Henry Graham's house that was built by his for his father. So they had to restore all the gingerbread designs, everything at the Greek revival. So now the town still owns it, but the funny thing is, again, nobody wants to acknowledge this, even though we have the proof. We have it right there on the deeds of the transfers, right, of houses being sold, that this was in the Thompson family. But
so maybe they didn't live there, but they owned it.
They owned it. So I think it was, that's why I said going back, if it was 1771, it could have been his grandfather, Matthew, who was a trader. And I think when he died, that probably was Henry Graham's or Orange Thompson's father's. So this could have been like somebody, maybe when I'm thinking it was in their family. So now that they're both rich, he has an estate down there, Henry Graham's moving down to North Haven. What are they going to do with an old farmhouse, right? So that's when it changes hands. That's the biggest piece we got to prove. And the way we're going to do that is not the historical society, because they got one foot on a banana peel and the other in a twilight zone right now, because they don't have anything to go on. It's all the information, I believe, is lying in the town hall and all the records. And that's where Colleen went. And that's where she said to this day, she's stuck because she's not one of those people, a land person, that can go past, because it goes to the rods and reels, huh?
Does she still work there?
She works now, but here's the weird part. Again, everything's strange. She never ever got fired or laid off from the town. But since she started working with us, strange things happen in her life. Some stuff I don't want to get into because it's very personal. It's something to do with her son, but let's put it this way, her daughter, I'll tell you just one thing. Her daughter, one time, so when I would call her up, she would get home. Her daughter, I heard her yell, "Mommy, don't talk to that man no more. Every time you talk to him, something happens." And sure enough, when I was talking with her, Colleen screamed. All her shades in her living room went flying up. And she said, "I told you, Mommy, not to talk to that man anymore. He's spooky." I'm like, "I'm not spooky." She goes, "I know that, but my daughter thinks that you're strange." I said, "So doesn't my wife. She thinks I'm weird too." But what happened is Colleen said, "I'm not that skilled to go back." She goes, "I know it goes back to rods and reels, but," she goes, it's the information's at the city hall. If you can get, what do you call those people that do it, like some not a title search, but
a surveyor,
somebody who's an expert in that. We would have to hire them, and that could be expensive, and they're the ones that could break that boundary. And then that is going to open up a whole new can of worms, because now if we can break that barrier and prove that if this was Matthew Thompson's estate, well, it could suck for us, because we might have to, if they make this as a historical house, we're going to have to go back out of our pocket maybe and get the clapboard, everything, and repaint and everything. When you're dealing with a historical house, it's nice to have the 1771 plaque, but it's also very dangerous because you got to restore it back to that time period with the paint and everything.
I mean, have you found anything? I know when we were in the basement, you found those.
Wait, Kenzie.
wooden dowels that look like they were hand hewn. And
Yeah.
so we
Did
know
you see that,
there's
Heather?
no question about it's an old house.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's right
Jay
there.
found a whole bunch in the wall or something. These wooden I actually have mine. He gave me.
Yeah, I gave it to I gave one to Joe. It's
But
in that
you can
little
see that it was
bag.
hand hewn, and that's what they
Yeah.
used instead of nails. They didn't have
Vampire
nails.
So
They
these
use these to hold the joist together.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
No.
we know that this
I
goes
thought that
way
was
back.
interesting.
Guys, imagine this, Heather. And some of them actually have even markings on them where how far they got, where they can go in deep. So
Mhm.
these were the actual
Vampire sticks.
vampire. You can fight the Buffy the vampire, but these were the actual ones. So somebody had hand carved these things out of wood, and we
Mhm.
found them. And some of them we actually had taken out of some beams when we were doing things, and we saved them. But these were all done by. I gave one to Joe. These were all done. So when these go back in time, these aren't no modern things, especially when you look at the beams. I mean, they had lumber mills way back in the 1860s where they were cutting wood square, on especially being the river down here, having the big wheels and those giant saws like you see at Sturbridge Village. When you look at the logs downstairs, you can see where there was actually bark on some of them years ago, and you can still see like a piece of the knot, where a branch would have been. So they had logs. So we know that if we can go back and we can find out this was Matthew Thompson's house, then we're going to go back to 1771, which is scary because there was nothing here. And so if there was nothing here, and when you look at the old maps, even like on our website, the way we found out was people don't realize that is that when this is crazy stuff is that when you have to really like be like a real detective when you're dealing with this, because to a common person or even like a regular paranormal investigator, that they're not going to know this. They're going to say, well, no, your house is 1950 because that's what the town says. But when you look at the old maps, you can see one of the older maps, it says M. Arnott and points. Well, that's Marion Arnott. Well, people don't know who Marion Arnott was. Well, Marion Arnott's father was William Lydell, and he owned a house in 1850s. Now, Marion's husband, remember I told you how mysteriously he died, that we think that she killed him? Well, her maiden name was Lydell. Her maiden name was Arnott. No. Yeah, her maiden name was Lydell. Her married name was Arnott. So she's the only one that died of natural causes in 1900. So when she died of bronchial pneumonia. But
in the house.
In the house, yeah.
In the house.
And we had her death certificate. Colleen did a fantastic job, but so when she died, on the old maps it says M. Arnott. Now, to a lay person, they'd be like, well, what does that mean? It's someone who lived there. But for us, as we're looking for historical, we know that on the map, when they drew that hand map, at the time, Marion Arnott had lived here. So we know it had to precede 1865 because her father died and mother died in 1865, 3 months apart. So we know that one goes back. Now, if we can go back farther and we can pick up other names, this is where we can also run into another problem. If it comes into another name that we're not familiar with, it could predate even that.
The gap, it seems, from what I've learned, is between 1771 and 1846. There's like a window in there. And from what I understand, the Historical Society doesn't really have any information on it, or they don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned to you, the only way you're going to find out if there is still records would be the town hall.
The town hall.
You got a good resource with your friend Colleen being there, but you could go into the vault. There's usually a vault with all the land records and go.
I've been in that vault with Colleen years ago.
Go into the books. Just ask the person there. How far do these books go back? These land records. like what year? And they might say we only have, to 18 something, but I'm intrigued that you said your deed says 1771. So I'm looking to find a way to validate that. Because obviously the basement is very tiny. I mean, how many times did I hit my head down there?
Yeah.
Because houses, weren't made for people my size.
Well,
up in the hallway, I'm standing in the hallway facing Kenzie's room, and my elbows are literally touching each side of the wall. It's very, very tiny, very quaint, but very small.
What could also be, which I don't have the nerve to do it, but in the 1950s, they poured a concrete basement floor. Prior to that, it was all dirt. And when you look at the two ends where the fireplaces were, if you go on the side, Joe, I don't know if you ever saw them, but on the sides, there's beehive ovens like this for baking bread on each side. So this must have been a very functional house at the time to have two of everything. So they must have, I don't want to use the word, I'll use the word servants. You know what I'm saying? Back then, they must have had slaves here. So this must have been a bigger property because they had a cook for people back then, because these people were very wealthy. So they didn't do their own cooking.
As far as that was built initially as a single family home, right? Because the home now, for the people that don't know, is a duplex.
It's a duplex. And one of the main reasons why we know is one of the guys that bought it, that we got to do more work. But when me and Mackenzie were researching some of their wills, we found some of their wills on there, and they talked about massive construction going on, like painting and things. But how we know is if this was built as a two-family, it would have been structurally different. But that middle window, when you look at the middle window like this, Heather, like middle window here, they ripped everything out, and when they put the wall, if you look outside, that middle window is still there. And I have it boarded up, but when we first bought it, the wall is right there. And I used to be able to go on my side, reach through the wall to this side. I used to scare the kids when they were playing here. I would go down and I go raw with my hand. Of course, I'm paying for it now, psychotherapy. But that's how they did it. They left the window there, and all they did is they split it in half. So they must have tore up old staircases, and that's what we were talking about with Richard that day upstairs, is that if they had a middle window there, why they did all that construction, why they left that window there, because the house is facing, which also is another indication that it's really old, is because back then there was no electricity. So they built it east and west because the sun rises in the east, which would shine the morning light down into a hallway, and so people could see and also probably the moon. But then at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, when the sun goes to set, the sun would be facing the west. So at all times in the hallway for the staircase, it would be lit up by natural sun. So we know that, but it's the renovation that was done. They just split it in two. So I think they did it, and that's why I think they did it when Mary and Arnott lived here, because it had to be for somebody, if like an in-law or somebody related, because if they were going to do it to have two strangers living side by side, I think they would have removed that whole entire window.
Right.
And I think they would have tore that whole thing down, and they would have sealed it off. So it's really complex, but it's fascinating at the same time. Like, I think I showed you guys, I don't know if I showed you, I know I showed the people who was here. This was Henry Graham Thompson right here. This was on his death. This was his obituary card. So this was Henry Graham, and he died in 1905 or 1903. And he was born in 1818. So this was Henry Graham. His father was Orrin Thompson, the founder of Enfield. And we know he's had sold a house. Now, in that box of records there, I have papers that Colleen made up, and they're big papers. They're like this big. They're folded in half of the actual deed and the transfer, but I can't read it because it goes into it's written by feather pen. So that's also pretty old when you're doing feather pen. So there's a lot
You're talking
of
about a quill?
huh?
A
No,
quill?
on the
Quill
deed
thing?
of transfer to the deeds. That was written, and Colleen actually photocopied it, and she goes, I can't even read it. She goes, it's written so precise.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, just not, even if you ruled out the paranormal and if you were looking into the history of this house, it's, and you had to try to find out the original owner. I'm getting a leg cramp here. Oh God. It's fascinating. That's what got me intrigued. Not so much the ghosts, but like on this paper that Elka has.
Like this is all when they were
So
born.
what Colleen had written down, and this is good, Joe, too, because this is only a piece of it. But what she did is when she wrote down everybody that lived here, right? On the original paper, it shows the day they died, everything, but also gives you the book number to research it at the town hall. It gives you the volume, the page number, and everywhere where if you go down to do the deed search, right? That's what they call it, like the history of the deeds.
Right. So
see.
From the first name on your list, the oldest name on your list, there should be a previous volume for the previous owner. So you go as far back as you can until they run out of books, I guess.
That's Elka has that right now. She's looking at the death records. We don't have all the death records because some people, when they moved out, they didn't die in Enfield. So she had access to everybody that died in Enfield, but she doesn't have the people outside because I know she's researching called the town hall, but back then it was really expensive just to get a copy of this. Like this is Robert Lydell. To get a copy in 2007, it was $25 per copy. So imagine if you had to go out. I mean, she was pulling out copies of everybody. So this would have been quite expensive. Now they're probably like $50 a copy. Now, William Lydell, this is interesting because, let me see here. I want to show you guys something here. Oh yeah, this is interesting. He dies 1919. Now, this was a guy, he died at the Hartford Hospital, but William Lydell was the Civil War veteran who was a cavalry soldier, we believe. This was Marion Arnott's brother. And he used to live here and on, oh my God, what do you call that thing when you look it up? Like the, oh my God, Elka, help me out with the occupation. It listed him as a house painter, but he was disabled. So he must have got shot or get hit by a cannonball. So this is his death record, but he didn't die in a house. But she picked it up because there was two Robert Lydells, and he died of, I can't even pronounce it. But he actually, let me look here. I'm looking to see if there's anything on here.
What'd be interesting is that we know what's been happening in the house over all the years, but what if none of that has anything to do with the history of the house? You know, I mean, the activity I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I guess unless somebody was into black magic or something like that over the years. I mean, there was some tales of witchcraft, right? Witch trials in
Native Americans.
Windsor. I mean, I guess we could theorize, you know, till the cows come home. But I haven't found anything that directly links anything that we've any history to the actual activity.
Right.
You know, especially not to what
this was a house with the two chimneys. See, Joe, we're on this side.
That's what it looked like way back when.
Yeah, so this, then one of them is torn down, which would be over here. That's where we believe. But the interesting thing is, you know, you would expect people to die of smallpox or alcoholism was rampant back then. Everybody drank. That's what they did, right? But you don't see anybody dying from any of those, like from like tuberculosis, which is rampant back then. You don't see anybody dying from smallpox. You know what I'm saying? It's really weird. You see them dying from falling down the stairs. You see them from suicides. You see them cerebral hemorrhaging, So it's like, if we could find somebody that said, okay, John Smith, he died from smallpox, or he died from, what was that other word you always hear on TV from I don't know, they use a certain word for a virus. Pneumonia, or Marion Arnold, like when she died from bronchial pneumonia.
Tuberculosis, TB.
Yeah, so, but you don't see any weird, just, you were looking for, like I was looking for people dying from diseases, and that is when Colleen's like, you know what? She goes, this is strange. So it's anyhow, even if there was no ghost, like I said, just it's fascinating, the house in itself, I mean, you add that, then you add the deaths, the hauntings, the people who were involved in. Now you got a mixed pot of where do you go? I mean,
well, it's fascinating. There's definitely a lot of history to the old house.
Yep.
But see if you can get down to the vault. I'd like to know if you can get any further back than 1846.
I know Bob Baker, and we tried, but before you guys go, you know what? We had a visitor here last night. Elka, go get your friend.
Uh-huh.
You remember who we were talking about last time? You're talking about
Hold on.
this is going to blow your mind. Kenzie, don't do that. I want you to sit here for a minute, please.
I can't anymore.
Sit.
Dude.
Look what she finds.
I can't do this anymore.
My girl, where'd you find that?
Now, this is not just a girl. This is handmade.
People next door.
Yeah, you can
She has a
tell.
bald spot. Now, when you said that, of course, I'm not being a sicko. I don't have a doll fetish lifting up their clothes. But you mentioned a heart, right? Look at Joe. Joe's all embarrassed. This
I had
was
to take my
handmade.
medicine.
Yeah, this was handmade. This somebody's grandmother or somebody made this a long time ago. And this was actually hand sewn. So somebody who wanted a Raggedy Ann made this. We found this at a used store. Savers in West Springfield, Mass. And how we found it, it was laying down and it had all the yarn for hair all over the place. So Elka's going to fix it. So as we were looking into the eyes, people out there in Radio Land, see the eyes? Oh, Kenzie, my coffee. You're fired, Kenzie.
I'm sorry. It's late. I have to take a shower.
I know. So you can see they were like, what's that needle point stitch? And not threaded. How they went like this, and on the nose you can see
Is there a tag on it anywhere?
Now we're getting weird tagging a doll off.
Because
I don't see a tag, but what I do see...
The ones with the heart were made by Knickerbocker, I believe.
Yeah, you can see...
I'm wondering if they took a part of a doll and recreated it or something.
Yeah, you can see how it was all hand sewn. Elka can tell you better about the dolls. I'm not a doll...
I just went through the paper, and
we'll have to do a show on dolls.
Who were living here, her name is Knickerbocker.
No.
We'll do a show on haunted dolls.
Hey.
So you tell them. But yeah, so this is her. You can see where she's hand stitched. So I mean, I just can't believe I'm playing with dolls on a podcast here. And I mean, next it's gonna come up is the doll transgender. I don't know, guys. Don't ask me these questions. Everybody asks me questions like this. I'm like, please don't ask me anything except for it's a Raggedy Ann homemade doll.
So where did you find this doll? Savers?
This was at that used store called Savers
Yeah, I
And
know the store. How long ago did you find that?
this week,
Oh.
Sunday.
we took a ride, and Zoe lay down.
Maybe it's a haunted doll and somebody got rid of it.
I know, right? But it's or somebody, yeah. So so I said to Elka, I said, you wouldn't believe what we paid for it. What do you think we paid for this thing?
$10.
Huh?
$10.
$2.50. $2.50. I said,
Okay.
Elka, I said, she's like, I don't know.
It's
I said, no.
definitely
I
haunted.
said, you're gonna buy
Somebody
that
wanted to get rid of
doll.
it.
I said, you're gonna make Joe's day. So we bought the doll, but is it haunted? Is it gonna levitate? Well, it
I
is
hope
actually kind of
so.
levitating now, but no. But I think it's a great conversational piece.
Yeah, but think about it. Somebody got rid of that, and they wanted to get rid of it for $2.50. There's got to be some history to it.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's not that I have enough issues.
Whatever.
But
Save
yeah,
that for another show.
But yeah, I mean, you could test it with a K2 meter. But isn't that cool though?
Put a cap ball on
$2.50.
it.
We were talking about that, about looking for the heart, and I said, and at first we got excited because of the thing there, but then I'm like, no, somebody's grandmother hand stitched this for somebody who probably could not afford one. So this isn't like something they just went out and bought.
I mean, they're
So,
not hard to recreate. Just
yeah, no, if you had a
stuffing
sewing
in
machine
some
and
material.
Yeah. Knickerbocker.
you tell Joe this stuff, I don't know, you find stuff.
Knickerbocker was,
and you get
yeah,
me.
Knickerbocker, I think, was the original maker of these dolls.
Right.
Because
So
the
on this death
Annabelle doll is a
certificate,
Knickerbocker, and I have
On
an
this
exact
death
replica
certificate,
behind me, which is
on the
Knickerbocker.
death certificate, hey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is nothing haunted, guys. Don't freak out. Elko was looking on a death certificate, and one of the person's last name is Knickerbocker.
There you go.
Maybe the doll came home.
Yahtzee.
Ada Knickerbocker.
Oh my God! Look at the time.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, boy.
So, but thank you guys for coming back on
Oh
again.
my God! It's after 11. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Yep.
put that doll in the rocking chair and let me know if she moves.
That's
I want that doll. I love that doll.
When I saw that, I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "Not only we were just talking. It was so weird. We just talked about it, Heather, and about Joe. Joe's a really good expert on it. He goes, "You got to find the heart with this and that." And I thought we had an original one, but then I looked at it. I said, "No." I said, "Somebody's Oma made it for them."
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to find. I don't. You know how I feel about haunted dolls. I don't know. I think. I don't think things.
So there was James Arnold's mother was Ada
Knickerbocker?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Who knows?
That would be something. Imagine that we did the genealogy and find out that was Ada is related to the Knickerbocker Raggedy Ann. I'd be like, you know what? I'm done. At this point, I'm like, oh, it can't get any stranger than this. But
yeah. Well, I hate to cut the show short, but I got to get up in the morning and go to work.
Guys. But yeah, we there's still so much, guys. We never got into like a lot of stories, but really, it's just I think it's just it's a fascinating house. It just really gets more and more bizarre the more you dig into it, you know.
Yep.
Well, it's a never-ending story.
Yeah, it's
But we are going to have some more events there. If anybody is interested in learning the history of the house and the history of the activity that's happened through the years and what we dealt with, come on down.
Okay.
And you guys won't be disappointed because everything is true. We've done which you guys know, tremendous amount of research. I mean, like this is one folder alone, guys, is all death certificates. So we try to we just don't want to tell you guys stories like we said last time. We try to, if we hear a story, we try to go out of our way to find some type of evidence.
You want to back it up with facts.
Back it up with facts. Yep. And you know my background a little bit, Joe, what I've done, and I have to. I got to find out. So if I get on somebody's radar, I'll pick them apart like an ant, you know. And
Well, I'll keep
that's-
everybody updated on future shows about the house, and
Yep,
Yeah.
as
definitely.
we have more events there, I'll let you know about the experiences people have or any evidence that we capture.
and
It's
Halloween,
a
if we
fascinating
can,
house. It really is.
if we can pull off a Halloween party and something like that, and we have it in the basement, like I was talking with Heather, with candlelights and in the dark in the basement, you know, or where the
In the
crawl
dark.
spaces.
Heather
Oh,
can
no,
come
with
up and bring her
candles.
spirit board.
I was going to say that's the perfect place to get Joe to do a spirit board first.
Whatever.
You know what? You guys can do that. I'll be outside the house. I'm the
Yeah.
biggest chicken ever. When you know,
Oh,
I'll
thanks,
be
guys,
crawling in
very
that
much.
crawl
I'll let-
space like John did.
yeah.
I'll let
I-
Heather close out the show, but thank you so much for coming on again.
Yeah.
It was
Yes,
very
guys.
fascinating.
Thank you for
We-
having
Thank
us.
Thank you for having
Thank
us
you
and
so
our
much.
dysfunctional family.
Monica,
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right,
you
guys.
still awake over
Talk
there?
to you soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye,
Yeah,
guys.
Bye.
everyone, make sure you tune in 2 weeks to Passport to the Paranormal. You can catch us live on Passport to the Paranormal on Facebook, Parapost Network, and Paralinks TV #1. And you can always catch the replay on Heather Leigh PhD on YouTube. So again, thank you, everyone. You all have a great night, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye, guys. Save that doll for me.